Uklama Amitla, Hupachasat Nuchalna that Histachitla Suma As. Hello, everyone, and good day. My name is Ricky Lee Watts, the Youth Program Manager at Indigenous Clean Energy.
Hello, my name is Eryn Stewart. I am the Managing Director at Indigenous Clean Energy.
So I'm going to start with you, Eryn. Why don't you help us describe the current level of participation of Indigenous communities in Canada's energy system?
So Indigenous communities across Canada are a powerful force for change in this country's clean energy transition. Something that a lot of people don't know is that actually apart from Crown and private utilities, Indigenous communities and enterprises are actually the largest single asset owner of clean energy assets. This far surpasses that of municipalities, of private businesses, and others. And this ownership accounts for about 25% of equity in these projects. So this is a significant involvement, and it means 197 large or medium scale projects, renewable energy projects that are 1 megawatt or larger, which equals about 19,150 person years of construction employment and $1.5 billion in Indigenous employment and contracting income. And so this is substantive, not just in terms of environmental impact and sustainable impact, but also economic and social impact. And I think that's what's so fantastic about this story.
Ricky Lee, what would you say would be the economic, but also the societal impact of full inclusion of Indigenous people in not just the current energy system, but also the energy transition?
It's a really, really good question. Expanding what Eryn shared with your question there, looking at societal and economic impacts, so much is possible. Within economic, just bringing forward the equity is a benefit for all people in really balancing out the economics and bringing further self-empowerment to our communities. And what is happening when looking at the socioeconomic gaps that do exist, bringing economy to all is certainly a benefit for all communities. And looking with society as well, thinking about bringing Indigenous worldviews and perspectives of interconnectedness to the forefront really has such potential to transform the way we think, the way we operate, and the way our systems are connected. When thinking about Indigenous and youth involvement, I see so much potential and so much impact occurring, and really having more Indigenous voices and more youth voices at these conversations will certainly steer us in a positive direction for greater impact.
Looking at the electricity sector specifically, what would you say are some of the main opportunities, but also the barriers for Indigenous peoples and employment within the electricity sector?
So when we look at the electricity sector, I'll speak first to where I think Indigenous people and communities have really thrived in this sector. And I would say that that's mainly in terms of renewable energy power generation. I've already highlighted some of the substantive benefits and projects that communities have done. And I think that there's still more opportunities there. But one of the issues with renewable energy project development is if you build a wind project or a solar project, there's significant jobs in the construction phase. But once it's in operation, those jobs disappear. And so how do you create jobs and opportunities that are longstanding and will continue to evolve, and there's opportunities for growth there? And so I think that this has been one of the major places where Indigenous communities have taken advantage is in that construction phase and in that operation stage. But the problem here is scalability and opportunities for growth, as well as careers as opposed to short-term jobs. And where I think there's a major opportunity right now is for more Indigenous people to be involved in utilities, to play influential roles in utilities, in government, whether that be, tribal government or federal government or municipal government or provincial territorial governments. I think that there is a major role for Indigenous communities and peoples to play. I also think about the evolution of the sector. When we look at the amount of energy generation projects that will be in the coming years, there is still opportunities, but it's quickly diminishing as there's less of a need. And so where do we look to in terms of diesel reduction projects and microgrids, to energy efficiency and housing and retrofit projects, to transmission and distribution projects and other electrification of the sector? And so this is a big area that ICE has been playing, is to look at not what has happened and building on those successes of what has happened, but looking at where the opportunities are yet to come. And so I think that this is a major area of opportunity. It's something that we are very actively exploring. And I think one of the barriers, I guess barriers and opportunities, one and the same, is a lot of those jobs are not remote jobs. And so if you're looking towards people that maybe want to stay connected with their community and with their culture, how do you make those jobs and those roles suitable for them? Now, in the virtual world that is COVID, it's offered a lot of variety of opportunities for people to work from home and remotely. And so how do we make sure that these kind of career paths are more suitable for people that want to live in their community? And I think that that's a barrier that a lot of people have faced, but also an opportunity in terms of what our future looks like.
This is a perfect segue for me, Eryn, to ask Ricky Lee. You were talking about the youth specifically earlier, and we know that the Indigenous community is the fastest growing demographic group in Canada, but also from speaking to people in the energy industry at large, that workforce shortages are expected. So there seems to be a sort of a match made in heaven here. How do we attract more Indigenous youth to come and work in the electricity sector?
Yeah, good question. Reflecting on various experiences working with communities and seeing the gaps existing and how to address that, I think what's really important for attracting Indigenous youth to these spaces is for Indigenous youth to see themselves in that space, to see leaders and role models who are in that space and knowing that they can follow in those footsteps upon that pathway, knowing what the dream destination may be, the pathway to get there, and the confidence to take those steps. And I think furthermore, looking at spaces and opportunities that are Indigenous led, that have role models, that are culturally grounded, and also address systemic barriers that do exist, and just having context of understanding of why things are the way they are and how we can work and advance towards a better future together. I think Indigenous youth, in seeing these facets as part of programming opportunities, will be more attracted to this sector.
To be clear, are you suggesting that Indigenous leaders within the sector already, leaders or professionals actually, need to, in a way, reach out more? Or are you suggesting that the industry needs to perhaps create more opportunities for Indigenous youth or others within the sector?
A bit of both, perhaps, reaching out, but significantly within industries to create space and uplift the professionals and leaders who are already creating impact, and highlighting that perhaps these professionals or worldviews bring a special dynamic to the work being done that is super valuable when looking at what we're going to be doing in the future.
Eryn, if I turn to you now, could you highlight some programs that are already having an impact on Indigenous people's participation in the electricity workforce? And in parallel, perhaps what programs you would like to see that don't exist yet?
So some great programs that are out there are the Coastal First Nations Climate Action Group. They are doing some great work on the ground, working with climate change coordinators in every community that are on the coast. They are fantastic. In Alberta, we've seen a little bit of a stall just because of, provincial government directives. However, they had a fantastic Alberta Indigenous Technical Working Group in Alberta that looked at the electricity sector and what needed to be done. So in the prairies, I know that First Nations Power Authority is working on community energy planning and project development initiatives. Then into Ontario, there's a community climate champions program that they're funding. And that's done a lot of fantastic work in terms of community development and project development there. And then into the Atlantic, there's Efficiency Nova Scotia, I know NB Power. I know that there is the Mi'kmaq Chiefs has been doing some excellent work. JEDI, which stands for the Joint Economic Development Initiative, they've been doing some fantastic work. And then into the north, there's groups like Arctic Energy Alliance. In the Yukon, they have a number of different programs. They're just fantastic. I know that there's a number of groups that are working with the EAFN as well on climate action and coming up with a climate action strategy. And then into Nunavut. Nunavut is doing an extensive work plan in terms of community energy planning development, working with the Nunavut Economic Developers Association and the Nunavut government, and then into Nunavik and Nunatsiavut, similarly having climate champion programs. And so there's a lot of different initiatives that are going on. A lot of different groups that are working on the ground. And then furthermore to that is we have ICE, Indigenous Clean Energy. We are providing capacity building programs nationwide. And so we have a number of different initiatives. The ICE network, we host completely free and open webinars that anybody can attend on a variety of different energy topics. And we also offer a number of free tools and resources that anybody can access through our ICE network. We have the 2020 Catalyst program, which is our keystone flagship program that's award-winning, that focuses on Indigenous clean energy capacity in all of the sectors, from everything from energy planning to project implementation. And through that program, we've worked with over 120 Indigenous communities across the country. And so I would say there's an enormous amount of things that are going on in terms of our nationwide influences and what that means at the ground level, but also that is being backstopped with all of this great community work on the ground. And that's so important that those run in parallel. Is you have kind of being able to look into another person's backyard and see what's working there and what hasn't worked before you make those same next steps for yourself, but also having people that are able to provide on the ground support, whether that be technically or from a community perspective. And so one of the things I would say on this, in terms of where are the gaps, and I want to be very clear about this too, is there are gaps, but there are already people thinking about them. And so if you're an organization that, hasn't worked in this space, is considering this space, look to those that are already doing this space and have been doing it for a long time, especially groups that are Indigenous led, because that is where you will get the most information that you need to advance your projects.
Looking at this question, I'm just blown away by Eryn's answer and how beautifully she answered your question. Expanding a little bit is stepping into the space and the sector, recognizing within energy and the confluence, the interconnectedness of Indigenous youth and clean energy. I think just seeing these two spaces being so interconnected and so just powerful for potential going forward, and looking at where I'm situated in a new opportunity, youth program manager for Indigenous Clean Energy, working on generation power. I see this as being such a powerful program, bringing forward influence of Indigenous youth perspective to clean energy. And while there may have been a gap there and there's research being done, but what's happening is that this program is being developed and soon to be implemented, where across the country, Indigenous youth and employers will be working together in advancing towards a future that is more sustainable and equitable for all. And I find that having Indigenous youth in this space with Generation Power is something I'm personally involved in. I'm really, really excited about, and is moving quite quickly in a good direction.
So as youth, and in your case, youth Indigenous, what excites you or concerns you the most about the future of the Canadian power sector?
So as a youth myself, I think what I would love to see more of in the sector is opportunities for youth to lead and provide valuable insight. I feel so often youth are put into a box of what they can and cannot do, and you follow the chain, and that's how you make change. And I don't see, in terms of the substantive change that we need for our future economy, that happening with this kind of hierarchical approach. I was 23 when we developed, my boss and I, Chris Henderson, developed the 2020 Catalyst program. And it was only me and him. And now we have 16 staff, and I'm the managing director at 28. And I think that kind of change, it's not me that's special. It's that I was given those opportunities to grow and learn and evolve. And I want to see more of that in the energy sector for youth to explore and be innovative and learn how to run organizations. And I just think there is so much opportunity in terms of what we know. And I want that to be valued in every workplace.
So as an Indigenous youth, I'm 27, and I've looked upon my life journey of what may be for the future, and just seeing what matters so much for anyone who is young is having someone to believe in them. Like with Eryn's story, having someone believe in her in that very moment catalyzed the Catalyst program and so much potential beyond. But really, it is looking at believing in youth and potential. There is a lot of passion, there's a lot of energy. And then with the wisdom and experience of someone who can help bring mentorship, it's a connection of these ideas that can bring forward such powerful change, looking at the success for the future economy.